Most Star Wars films start with destiny, with heroes chosen by the Force, and villains locked in mythic battles. But Rogue One starts with something else entirely. A family ripped apart, a child abandoned, and a galaxy already suffocating under tyranny. It is not about fate, it is about survival. From the first frame you know this is different. No crawl, no fanfare, no safety net. Just ordinary people forced into impossible choices. Jyn Erso, Cassian, Andor Chirrut, Imwe Baze, Malbus, Bodhi Rook. None of them are destined for greatness, but all of them are pulled into history. And history does not care if they survive. That is the genius of Rogue One. It strips away the myth and shows the cost. The rebellion is not clean, it is messy, fragile and desperate. Every victory is paid for in blood. Every mission feels like the last. And the ending refuses to comfort you. That is what makes it hit so hard. Even familiar faces are twisted into something darker. Darth Vader is no longer the tragic fallen hero, but a monster, in the dark slaughtering rebels without mercy. The Empire is not just an idea, it is a machine grinding down hope at every level. Against that machine, ordinary people throw themselves, knowing they will not come back. And yet somehow Rogue One never feels empty. Its tragedy carries weight because it shows that sacrifice matters. Hope is fragile, but it survives because people are willing to give everything for it. That message lingers long after the credits because it feels honest in a way few blockbusters ever dare. In this video we are going to explore why Rogue One is the darkest Star Wars film, how that darkness makes it unique, and why it might just be the best story this galaxy has ever told. Rogue One begins differently than any other Star Wars movie. No opening crawl, no triumphant fanfare, just the sound of a cold galaxy already at war. Right from the start, the film tells you this is not about prophecy or destiny. It is about survival, in a time when survival's not guaranteed. That tone is important because it frames the movie as less mythic fantasy and more a war story. The heroes are not Jedi or chosen ones. They are broken people with criminal records, regrets and betrayals hanging over them. Jyn Erso is not a bright-eyed dreamer, but a reluctant fighter dragged into the rebellion against her will. Cassian Andor is introduced by shooting an informant in the back. Saw Gerrera is a paranoid extremist who tortures prisoners. These are not characters meant to inspire posters for children. They are the kind of messy figures war produces. And that honesty makes them compelling. The movie also embraces moral grey areas in a way no other Star Wars film does. The rebellion here is not a clean, shining army of heroes. It is a desperate coalition willing to assassinate Galen Erso and silence anyone who might expose its secrets. That scene where Cassian is ordered to kill Jyn's father shows how fragile the rebellion's ideals really are. Rogue One makes it clear the heroes we celebrate in the original trilogy were standing on foundations built with compromises. And then there is the pacing of the film, which feels like a slow grind toward inevitable doom. Every scene strips away another layer of hope until the final act. This is not a story where luck saves the day, or where a Jedi swoops in at the last minute. This is a story where people sacrifice themselves one by one until there is nothing left. It is a war film structure, disguised in Star Wars skin, and it works because it commits fully to that framework. The film also takes time to highlight how ordinary the sacrifices are. Bodhi Rook is a defector who dies trying to fix a communications relay. Chirrut Imwe is a blind believer who walks into gunfire, trusting the Force, but without any lightsaber to protect him. Baze Malbus falls trying to avenge his friend. Even K2SO goes down buying seconds for Jyn and Cassian. None of them are chosen or destined. They just do what they can and die for it. That is the rawness missing from most Star Wars stories. And of course, all of this builds to Scarif. The final battle is not a clean victory, but a Pyrrhic one. Every hero dies, the Data barely escapes, and the Death Star wipes the battlefield clean. Instead of an uplifting medal ceremony, the movie ends in silence as two people embrace on a beach knowing they are seconds from death. It is heartbreaking but also deeply satisfying because it shows sacrifice matters even when no one survives to see it. Rogue One also changed the way we view A New Hope. Before this movie, the Death Star plans were just a MacGuffin. After Rogue One, they are the result of dozens of lives lost. Every time you watch Luke blow up the station, you now carry the weight of Scarif with you. That is what great prequels do. They do not just connect dots, they reframe what you thought you knew. Even the way the movie uses familiar elements is darker. Darth Vader's hallway massacre is terrifying because it strips away any remaining illusion that he is a tragic anti-hero. Here he is, pure fear, pure darkness. The rebels are not fighting a fallen man, they are fighting a monster. That contrast is what makes the ending unforgettable. One reason Rogue One resonates so strongly is that it strips Star Wars down to the basics of war. It is not about destiny, it is about logistics. Whole sequences revolve around transmitting data, fixing relays, or stealing clearance codes. That may sound dull on paper, but in execution it is thrilling because it grounds the story in practical detail. These are the small victories and failures that shape massive galactic events. The characters embody this same grounded approach. Cassian is a man who has done terrible things for a cause he still believes in. His arc is not about redemption, but about acceptance of who he has become. Jyn starts as someone who has given up entirely until she sees her father's hologram and realizes that fighting is not about winning, but about doing what is right while you still can. That is a far more relatable motivation than Chosen One prophecy. Even the supporting characters drive this realism. Bodhi is not a fighter, but a cargo pilot who struggles with fear and doubt. Chirrut is not a Jedi, but a faithful believer who clings to the Force like religion. Baze is a soldier who has lost faith but rediscovers it in his friend's final act. These are not epic arcs, they are small human stories. That makes them hit harder because they feel like people you could actually know. The movie also leans into the idea that war destroys innocence. The conversation about Jeddah shows this perfectly. The city is holy, but it is also a target. Saw Gerrera's rebels fight with tactics that even the rebellion finds extreme. Civilians are caught in the middle between stormtroopers and extremists. This is the kind of messy occupation and insurgency dynamic we never see in other Star Wars films because it is too close to reality. Rogue One dared to show it anyway. And yet despite its darkness, Rogue One doesn't become nihilistic. The characters still believe in something greater than themselves. Chirrut repeats, "I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me not because it guarantees survival, but because it gives him courage." Jyn says rebellions are built on hope, not because she expects to live, but because she knows someone else might carry the fight forward. That balance of despair and belief is why the ending feels tragic but not hollow. The cinematography reinforces this grounded realism. Locations like Jeddah Iadu and Scarif feel tactile, lived in, and dangerous. The stormtroopers are not faceless mooks but oppressive occupiers with weight and menace. The battle scenes are shot like historical war films with handheld cameras and smoke-filled chaos. You can practically feel the grit under your fingernails when you watch it. Even the music by Michael Giacchino leans into this darker, grounded vibe. It uses familiar Star Wars cues, but twists them into something more desperate. The triumphant swells are shorter, the percussion heavier, the notes sharper. It sounds like Star Wars, but filtered through the lens of inevitability and loss. That subtle shift makes the entire film feel distinct from the main saga. And when you stack all of this against other entries in the franchise, the difference is obvious. The prequels are political epics, the originals are mythic adventures, the sequels are fractured nostalgia trips. Rogue One is the war movie. Its identity is clear and consistent from start to finish. That clarity makes it stronger than films that try to be everything at once. The brilliance of Rogue One is not that it abandons Star Wars ideals, but that it reframes them. Hope becomes something fragile, not guaranteed. The Force becomes something you believe in, not something you wield. Victory becomes something you may never live to see. Those shifts elevate the story into something raw, more human, and ultimately more powerful. The final reason Rogue One stands as the best Star Wars film is the way it connects to the saga without being trapped by it. It is a prequel, but it never feels like homework. Instead, it enhances the movies around it by giving emotional weight to events you already know. That is a rare trick, and it is one the sequels never managed to pull off. Think about the simple fact that the Death Star plans are now tied to faces and names. Before Rogue One, they were just stolen somehow. After Rogue One, they are Jyn, Cassian, Bodhi, Chirrut Bays, and K2SO. That knowledge makes A New Hope more powerful because you realize Luke is not just finishing a mission, he is honoring fallen soldiers. It gives the original trilogy an added layer of tragedy and triumph at the same time. The film also reshapes how we view the rebellion. In the originals, they are the good guys, simple as that. In Rogue One, they are fractured, divided, and often ruthless. Mon Mothma debates assassination, Cassian follows orders without hesitation, and Saw Gerrera is essentially a terrorist. This complexity makes the victory at Yavin more meaningful because it was not inevitable. The rebellion almost tore itself apart before it had the chance to succeed. And yet Rogue One never loses sight of why Star Wars matters. Even in the darkest moments, it insists that hope is worth fighting for. That message is delivered not by a chosen Jedi, but by ordinary soldiers. That inversion is what makes the film special. It proves that the galaxy does not revolve around Skywalkers. There are countless unnamed heroes who made the victory possible. The structure of the film reinforces this. Every sacrifice builds on the last until the baton is passed to Leia in the final seconds. That ending is both devastating and uplifting because it acknowledges the deaths while showing their purpose. You walk away crushed by loss but inspired by the idea that sacrifice is not wasted if it moves the fight forward. That is a rare emotional balance in blockbuster filmmaking. It also helps that Rogue One has some of the best moments in the franchise. The space battle over Scarif with Hammerhead corvettes, ramming Star Destroyers. The ground assault with AT-ACT walkers looming over desperate soldiers. And of course Darth Vader's hallway massacre, which became instantly iconic. These scenes are not just spectacle. They are tied directly to character stakes. That is what makes them stick in your memory. And perhaps the greatest achievement of Rogue One is that it feels complete. You do not need a sequel to understand it. You do not need a trilogy to explain it. It is a self-contained story, with a beginning, middle, and end. That alone sets it apart from most modern blockbusters that exist to tease future content. Rogue One has the courage to end, and that ending makes it timeless. The legacy of the film is clear. It inspired Andor, which doubled down on political intrigue and grounded rebellion storytelling. It showed Lucasfilm that Star Wars could thrive outside the Skywalker saga if handled with care. And it gave fans a reminder that this galaxy can still surprise us when it takes risks. Rogue One proved that darker does not mean hopeless, it means honest. So when people argue about the best Star Wars film, it is hard to ignore Rogue One. It may not have lightsaber duels or chosen ones, but it has something more rare. It has truth. It shows war as sacrifice, rebellion as messy, and heroes as flawed. That is why it stands out. It is the darkest Star Wars film, and that is exactly what makes it the best.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.